Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hello, hello, hello. Greetings to everyone. Greetings. I am Gina, and I am here today, January 27th, to launch my new podcast, Africa A to Z. Yay! Drum roll. I'm excited. I'm excited like that. But yes, thank you, thank you, thank you. Um, this is a project that's been on my heart and on my mind for a long time, over a year. And just putting it together has been a labor of love. And I'm so excited that I'm actually doing it. And that you're interested in this. Okay, so first things first, Africa A to Z is a podcast where we're going to discuss the continent of Africa, one country at a time. So we're going to start at A, Algeria, and we're going to go all the way down to Z, Zimbabwe. Who knows, by the end of the podcast, there may be new countries, there may be new names, but that's Africa A to Z, right? That's what we'll be doing. We're going to be taking a walk through each country. We're going to learn about the countries. I'm inviting people, if you are from any of the marvelous countries of Africa, to please let me know if you're interested in joining me on the podcast for a nice interview, a friendly interview. I want us to become acquainted. And that's the reason for the podcast, for everyone to get acquainted with Africa and Africans. We do know, studies have proven this decades ago, that the oldest living human being, the DNA, was found in Africa. So we know that we all descended from that mitochondrial Eve in Africa, right? So we're all African. We need to understand that. Now, some of us are phenotypically African, right? So some of us you can look at and say, this person is a descendant of an African person, someone like me, right? But you're going to meet and see all different kinds of people who are born African, who have African DNA, not just transplanted, their parents transplanted them to Africa at some point and they happen to be born there. No, an African indigenous person. You'll see African people come in all shapes and colors, as well as sizes. So we're going to be debunking a lot of myths. We're going to be decolonizing our minds. We're going to gain an understanding of what Africa is. It's 54 countries. So that's myth one, right? Africa's not a country. And it's a continent that contains 54 countries within it. Now, I want you to come to this podcast with an open mind. And I don't want you to have any shame about anything that you didn't know, because we are learning together, right? I'm doing research. I've been doing research for a long time. I'll continue to do that. And then I'm sharing what I know. It's each one teach one up in here. That's how it's going to be. So I will learn things and I will share what I've learned. And I hope you do the same, right? I hope you're interactive with the comments. I hope you engage with me. You can also email me. I'm from Sankofa Sojourns, right? Sankofa Sojourns is a company that I started where we travel and transform. Sankofa Sojourns is a place where we learn history. We learn history related to the transatlantic slave trade. And we go to places of significance to it, places that are not necessarily fun and exciting places to visit, but they're necessary for our healing. So we Sankofa, we look back to fetch what we need to go forward. That's what Sankofa is. So we Sankofa by going to these places, and we bring healing and joy there. So if we go to the African Burial Ground in Manhattan, we're also going to sit in the conference room together, do some healing meditation, do some journaling, maybe write some poetry, maybe draw some pictures, maybe just talk and make each other laugh. so that we can bring healing to spaces where harm has taken place. And that's the goal of Sankofa Sojourns. And so that's what this is. So we're coming to you by Sankofa Sojourns. Sankofa Sojourns is sponsoring this whole venture. So Africa A to Z is an extension of that, right? Because I understood from the beginning that we can't just Sankofa what happened here. We're going to have to go back to Africa. So we're going to have to go back to Africa together. And here's the kicker. We're going to have to retrace and reverse the Middle Passage by ship together. Now, let that sit. So now before we do that, I thought it would be a good idea for us to get to know one another, build a community, and learn about Africa, because we know our history began there, not in whatever country you might be sitting in right now if you're outside the continent, right? So if you're like me, your ancestors were brought here to the United States. When they traced my DNA, it was literally like Africa, North Carolina. That's where I'm from. So we know that that's where we're from, right? Now, of course, there was European ancestry mixed in to my DNA as well. And so we may have to Sankofa some things in Europe as well, because many of us have European ancestry mixed in to our DNA. Not, it could be recent, could be one of your parents or one of your grandparents, or it could be distant relatives. Regardless of how they became our distant relatives, they are our relatives, right? So we may have to do some Sankofa work there too. But so Africa A to Z is a podcast where we can open up the door and we can learn about Africa, our motherland, the mother of all humanity, one country at a time. So that's what this podcast is for. And again, like I said, I don't want anyone to feel like, oh, I should know this already. Oh, or I don't want you to feel like I'm talking down to you because you do know something. I'm sharing widely. I want the babies to watch the podcast as well as the nanas and everybody in between. So we can all learn together. As I told you, it's each one teach one up in here. So I'm learning. I want to share what I'm learning with you. I want you to engage with me. I want you, if definitely, like I said, if you are willing to have a open, beautiful discussion about your country and your culture, and you live in Africa or you come from Africa, but you may live here, let's meet up. Let's meet up on Zoom. Let's talk about it, because I want you to be a part of this too. I don't want it to just be me talking to you and then there's, and it's just a talking head, which I can do that, right? But I think it's more engaging if we do it together. So that's the goal. So I want us to work together at this. So I do have to say that I have to express some gratitude before I go any further. I have a lot of gratitude for lots of people, so many people who you have no idea how much you touch my life, right? Now, the podcast itself, as I said, is an extension of Sankofa Sojourns. Sankofa Sojourns started with visions of African women dancing on slave ships that I would see while I was at yoga, at this Dawn Yoga Center. So I want to thank my Wan Jang Nim, Irene Mock, for helping me usher these visions out of my soul, right? They were there. But it wasn't until I was able to touch that part of my soul, to touch that part of my consciousness, that I was able to access these visions. Okay, so I do have lots and lots of gratitude to Irene. So Irene, I just want to say that to you. I also want to thank my bestie, Stephanie Basima, because when I had a vision, a very crystal clear vision, of a spiritual download, basically, of what I was supposed to do. And I told her. She said, okay, let's go. You got your purpose. I'm going to make this, let me make you make this happen. So thank you, Steph. Thank you, thank you, thank you. I also have to thank my sister. Yes, Cheryl, my sister Cheryl. I have a few sisters. Well, my sister Cheryl Glenn, right? Because I also, when I told her about my download, said the same thing. Oh, you found your purpose. Okay, great. But even before that, she's been that sister who stayed in my ear, who helped me with different things, with my whole spiritual evolution. And she also initiated me into like Africanness, into my own Africanness. My sister Lynn, she gave me my first African outfit. She gave me my second African outfit, right, too, if I think about it. Took me shopping for African clothes at Tents of Kedar in Brooklyn. Um, just helped me as I was feeling my way through these things. You'll hear it in the podcast, but she also gave me a book when I was a young woman that opened up, my heart and my mind to what life might be like on the continent. But yes, so I do owe my sister. No, I don't owe her. I give her gratitude and I say thank you. And there are so many people along the way, so many people along the way. But these are the three people who helped me from the beginning and they, pushed me in their own ways. In their own ways, they pushed me forward and kept me going and made sure that I was, okay while I was doing this. So I wanted to say thank you to them. But again, so Africa A to Z. I go into the first episode. I talk to you about why I do this. I'll talk to you, about, the genesis of it, as far as where I was mentally, as far as my consciousness, my African consciousness being awakened as a child. So, you'll get that information when you listen to the podcast. I don't want to spill too much, but I also want to tell you that this podcast is dedicated to two of the greatest men I've ever known. My father, Norman Lato, who's the first person who ever talked Africa to me and with me. And I would say planted seeds, right? Planted those seeds of curiosity about Africa and connection to Africa. And my father-in-law, Musa Juf. These were some of the greatest men that I've ever known, like in their own rights. They were totally different people. One was born and raised in Brooklyn, like me. One was a son of Senegal, right? One was inherently an African king and just always knew it and always conducted himself as such, whereas one was actually an African king of royal lineage whose family decided that their spiritual life was more important than their material world, and they turned away from things of that nature. So, but these two men have shaped a lot of how I see myself, right? They've shaped a lot of how I see myself. They're both on the ancestral side right now, right? One, African American man who didn't have a long life. My father died at 64. And when I think about how young that is in the span of time, so, that was him. And then there was my father-in-law who lived to be 90. And when you think about being 90 in Africa, and what an accomplishment that is, where the lifespan is not that, right? So these men, very different men, shaped me and influenced me. And so I want to say that this podcast is dedicated to both of them, right? So now we're going to talk a little bit more about what the podcast will look like, right? So as I said, I'll be talking, and then my invitation is, if you are from the continent, and you may live here, you may live in Europe, you may live in South America, Asia, New Zealand, Australia, I don't know, but maybe you live in Africa too, and you're interested. I would love to have you on as a guest. So you will email me, or you can comment here and we can chat a little, but we can set that up because I want to get your lived perspective of what it's like to be in your African country with your African self. Okay. So, but in the meantime, until that happens, because I've gotten a few people who have volunteered, but I haven't gotten them to like come all the way through with their contact information so that we can set up interviews. So if you're interested, I would really like for you to let me know. And you can email me at sankofasojourns@gmail.com. Or you can go to my website, sankofasojourns.com, and you can click on contact and you can send me your information that way too. But I'm interested. We need to work together on this because that is what this is all about. This is a communal work. This is not something that I just need for me and, just something that I want to do. This is about all of us doing this together. So I see we have some folks joining in. So, Sister Laura, I love you so much. This is the most kind, sweet warrior that I've met. And she just exudes love all the time to me. And I always feel it. So thank you so much for watching. And I mentioned her earlier in this episode, right? I did mention that my best friend, Stephanie Basima, she's here, she's watching. So thank you both. Thank you both. And thank you so. So what about if you're from Brooklyn? Well, if you're from Brooklyn, that, as we said, right? I used to say that I'm from a tiny African village called Bed-Stuy, right? Because when we were growing up in Bed-Stuy, me and Stephanie Basima, it was basically an African village. Everywhere you looked, there were people who looked just like you, and there was a sense of community, and we worked together, and we got through somehow. And it was a very African feel to the place. We just didn't know. We didn't know that's where we got that from, right? So that's what that was. It has changed through the years. My neighborhood has gentrified, and I left. I left my neighborhood in '91. I left Brooklyn altogether in 2005. So, but you can take the girl out of Brooklyn, but you can't take the Brooklyn out of the girl. So you may hear it in my voice. It is who I am. I am a New Yorker, and I'm from Brooklyn. So you'll hear that. But that's where we're from. And if you're from Brooklyn, not this podcast. I won't be interviewing you if you're from Brooklyn on this podcast necessarily, but perhaps, depending on your African perspective, because I'm meeting a lot more people who live in Africa or live part-time here, part-time in Africa, but they're not from Africa, right? So they have a different perspective too. So perhaps if you're from Brooklyn and you live in Africa, if you spent some time in Africa, yes, I may have you as a guest on the podcast, Steph. That's true. So that's what we're going to be doing. We're going to be learning together. I'm going to be teaching what I know. It's not a classroom. It's going to be a very casual setting, right? It's going to be an audio podcast at the start. I'm not going to record a lot of videos and things. You can listen to this while you're doing something else, right? If you need to. But if you want to sit down and get your notebook and get yourself an Africa A to Z notebook and, write your notes in there about the different countries and the things that you're learning, that's a possibility too, right? Because I do want you to pick things up. And I also want you to reflect on what you already know. I want you to understand that you're already connected, right? We're already connected to Africa because you don't lose your connection, to your mother. Even if you don't know where she is, she's still your mother and you're still connected to her. And there's still that DNA connection. So that's pretty much our relationship with Africa, regardless of where we are. We still have a connection to Africa. And so we're going to learn more. We're going to take a little walk through each country so that we can get to know them all. I mean, you're going to learn on this next episode, we'll learn a little more. So the first one, we're going to just kind of introduce you to the podcast itself and Africa as a whole. And then in the next episode, we're going to do a little digging into how Africa got to be the Africa we know today. Who drew those lines? Why? Why are these countries here? And who are those people? And then after that, we're going to start our dive in. And we'll start with Algeria. And I know you're going to enjoy it. There's a lot of beautiful things to learn about the people of Algeria, the place of Algeria. And we're going to do that. And we're just going to keep walking from Algeria. We're going to keep going. We're going to go on to Angola. We're going to just keep going. Benin, Burkina Faso. We're just going to go all the way through to Zimbabwe. And so my hope, my goal is that you will gain a deeper understanding of the continent, feel a greater connection to the continent, feel pulled to go to the continent. I want people to go to Africa. And I'm not going to tell you which country to go to. I think you need to follow your heart. I have a friend who said, there's something about the name Mozambique that makes me want to be there. So I'm trying to encourage that person to think you need to go to Mozambique. You need to learn about Mozambique and go visit it. So having had lots of conversations like that, because I am that person who's always somehow managing to have conversations about Africa, right? It's just the way it goes with me. And I do try to get to Africa as often as I can. So it comes up a lot in my life. And what I hear a lot also is people are like, man, I never knew that. I never knew that. The first time I went to Africa in 1999, someone, when I came back, one of my colleagues asked me if I had seen any lions or giraffe, and I got like a little attitude with him, right? Because I had been in the city of Dakar. So I was like, no, I didn't go to a zoo. It's like you went to Brooklyn, downtown Brooklyn. Like for me, downtown Dakar was like downtown Brooklyn, right? It was just Black people everywhere, business, hustle, bustle. Like, so no, I didn't see any lions or giraffes. So, but then I learned that he just didn't know any better, right? That was the imagery that he had about Africa. So that's what he thought, and it was by design that he had no idea. It was by design that he didn't know anything about Africa. Hey, Miss Perry. Hi, how are you? Thank you for listening. Yes, so it was the misinformation, the disinformation. It was purposeful. They didn't want us to know. Divide and conquer actually works, right? So that is a strategy that's always used when it comes to melanated people. So it's always going to be send out wrong information. When someone says something right, try to, divert the truth, try to hide the truth, just mix it up. So what we learn about Africa, I know me as a child, like growing up in the 70s during the Biafra Wars, nobody taught us about the Biafra Wars or about Nigeria or anything. They just showed images of babies starving with distended bellies and flies on their eyelids. Like that's what the imagery came out of Africa for us was. No explanation, no reason why. What caused this war? What's happening over there? Just that. So that became the image that many of us grew up thinking of when we thought of African people. So we're going to debunk that. You're going to learn the truth. You're going to learn the truth about the place of Africa, the people of Africa, the various cultures, because it's not just one culture, right? You can't just say African culture. There is certain things that are just pervasive throughout the continent. There really are certain things that are at their core African. But Africa is not a monolith, right? It's got a lot of different sides to it. It's got a lot of different nuances to each culture. You'll learn, that's why they have over 3,000 ethnicities there and over 3,000 languages spoken there. So people are the same in many ways, but also very unique in other ways. So it's beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. So I invite you. The podcast is available now. So you can, if you're an Apple podcaster person, you like to listen on Apple, you can go there and listen there. If you like Spotify, iHeartRadio, Deezer, it's a lot of places. I did not post it on Amazon Music because I just have a personal beef with them. So I didn't post it on Amazon. So if you're an Amazon user, find it somewhere else. It's on iHeartRadio. It's on Spotify. It'll be, it's in a lot of different places. So, and I'm also going to put it on my YouTube channel. And subscribe to my YouTube channel because I'll probably put a few little extras there, since that's mine and it's my space and I get to do what I want to do in there. So subscribe to Sankofa Sojourns on YouTube, and then you can get notifications about when, I post something new, and you can see things. Like this conversation we're having today, I will probably upload this to my YouTube channel later, as because the YouTube channel will be more video versus the podcast, which is more audio, but you can listen to it on my YouTube channel as well if you like. And share this podcast. I need the word to get out so that people listen, people learn, people join. Because like I said, this is about community building. So we're going to build an educated community, right? We're going to know our stuff, but we're also going to join forces together, right? Because we're stronger together. And together we can do things that we can't do by ourselves all the time. And there's a value to community and communal work, right? There's something about us all pulling together toward a common goal that has a specialness and it has a power. So we got to work together, and we're going to do it together. So we're going to listen to the podcast. You're going to engage as a community member. You're going to share your comments with me. Again, you can email me if something that I said, triggered you or something like that. Let me know. But we also, during the podcast, will always take moments of reflection and time for breathing. Because I know that, talking about Africa and its history can bring a lot of things up for everyone. The people who live there, the people who were stolen from there, and even the people who stole the people from there. We've all been traumatized. We've all been traumatized on all sides. So we'll breathe together. I'll invite you to reflect on things together so that we do create this community, because I need you. Because I need you. I could go by myself on that trip, on that boat. I could book passage on a cargo ship and make my way to Africa by myself over the sea. But that's not the plan. That's not the point. The point is for us to do it together. For us to do it together. So let's get comfortable with Africa. Let's get comfortable with each other so that we can move this needle and get this mission going. Because we have some healing to do. So we'll start with some Africa A to Z healing information, and then we will be able to take ourselves over to the continent one day. One day. I'm not rushing you. I'm not rushing you. There is no rush. We are the owners of time, and we are timeless. So we will do it in African time. Okay? But we'll do it together in community. There's a Wolof saying, Nit Nite Garabum. And that means humans are each other's healing. So we humans will heal together. And thank you, Babacar. Shout out to Babacar Joof for teaching me that expression. You gave it to me and I run with it. So thank you for your time. I'm so excited for the launch. Listen to the first episode. I'm going to put them out every 2 weeks after that. So listen for the first episode and let me know what you think of it. And thank you so, so much. I am so grateful that you have joined this community. Thank you.